Hello, I'm Mimma Viglezio and I am the editor of Tomorrow Digital Showroom. And today I'm here to bring you the lovely Thakoon from New York. Thakoon has introduced his new collection a few days ago, just a few days before the official start of New York Fashion Week, Women's Fashion Week, that start officially tomorrow. And he has accepted to come in and talk to me about his new collection. So here he is. Hi,
Hi, Mima.
how are you?
Good, good. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine to you. I'm sorry I make you work just for 15 minutes.
No, no, no. This isn't work. It's always good to talk, so it's never work for me.
Good. So listen, I was telling our viewers that we're going to discuss the collection that you have presented a few days before the start of
Mhm.
New York Fashion Week. And so just to give it a start, I would like to know from you, what was your reference? What did you have in mind? Well, I mean, I've seen it, of course, and we can go
Mhm.
through the details, but tell us a little bit about what you want to say about your collection.
Yeah, I think that I'm not alone in this feeling. I think, especially, as we all are going through this pandemic together, I think that the one big thing that has affected us all has been COVID. And, working as a creative person, as a designer, in your home, without the sort of like the touching and feeling of fabrics, without hanging out with your team members and your designers, it is challenging. So, but what we do is, what I like to do is I like to really look at those challenges and present solutions to
Mm.
the customer and to my fans, and that's what I've been doing. And in fact, I've been doing that for a couple of years now. My design approach has shifted, away from slightly fantastical to a lot more practical. But that shift doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice design value and design integrity. So I think, in fact, what you'll see in this collection is more discipline, more integrity in pieces that are functional, practical, and really works for the customer of today, who's dealing with a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, you said in an interview, I think about last year or 2 years ago, I think it was last year, but I lost a little bit track of time, that you wanted to give real clothes to real people, and that why it seems more simple, but actually the quality was still at the level you wanted it, and the design. And this is very, very obvious in this collection, which made me think one thing. I don't know if you followed men's fashion
I do.
months that just ended. And I don't know if you noticed, but most of the brands try to stay away from comfort. And
Hmm.
actually, in a way, you didn't dive in because that's what you've been doing. And I wouldn't call it comfort, but it was a little bit counter
Hmm.
trend compared to that, which I didn't dislike. But were you aware of that, or you just didn't think, you didn't care, you didn't?
Yeah, I kind of don't care. I kind of, I'm more in tune with, I think, my personal feelings of the moment and how I'm feeling now, and the way that comfort has been introduced to people, in ways that we've never seen before. If you can actually wear, sneakers to work now and t-shirts to work now, why would you, like, why take it away from people at this point, right? And so I think that's the reality of where we are today as a society. Yes, we can still dream about fashion, and we can really look at something fantastical and say, oh my God, that's beautiful, and I love that. But when it comes to your day-to-day life, like, what are you really, what are you willing to put on your body right now? And so that's the dialogue that I have always with myself, with my team members. And comfort is something that has to stay. If you think about it, men's fashion traditionally has a lot of functionality and comfort built into it, and trends don't change that much for men's fashion, if you think about
True,
it. For
true.
women, why can't there be those things as well, right? And so I think that we've got to really kind of start to kind of question and dissect the same rules for both sexes. We can't have one rule for one and one rule for another. I just don't think that that's the case anymore.
Absolutely, I agree. And let me help a little bit the people that are listening to this, that have probably seen photos, but can you tell a little bit about the materials you use in the collection? There are two beautiful suits that seem very comfortable and, a little bit away from the body. Is it wool? What? Just describe them a little bit more than what we can
Exactly,
do.
exactly. I'm happy to, just because I think that part of my job right now is to, especially as we, produce designs that are more simplistic. I think it is about educating the customer on the fabrication, on appreciation of craft and all of that. So happy to talk about the fabrications. The suits that you're talking in particular about is the idea of using like a really supple wool knit boucle,
Mm-hmm.
and cutting it in tailoring pieces. And I think that that is in part because and I know that we've all been wearing sweatshirts pretty much maybe 4 or 5 times a week now.
Sometimes not even.
Yeah, exactly. And so
My clothes
and
have been locked away. Yeah, I haven't seen them for a year. So yeah.
and pajama dressing, was a trend before, is continuing to stay because of the pandemic. And so my thought was, how can we make a suit? How can we make somebody want to wear a suit again? Maybe it's doing it in a way that's unconstructed. Maybe it's like utilizing some tailoring techniques, but doing it unlined and doing it on a really soft wool boucle, the way that you would want to feel like you're snuggling in a blanket or something quite soft and supple. That was the approach of that suit. And so talking into other fabrics that we've used in the collection, you see a lot of knit wool. You see a lot of like sort of like really fine wool, merino qualities, but cut in more sporty, more athleisure sort of sensibility. So you feel like you're wearing the comfiest of sweats, but then it's actually elevated materials.
I must say that the styling in the photography I've seen was very beautiful. I mean, this lovely girl with all that layering, and then the problem is that sometimes we try to do it at home and it doesn't look as beautiful. So just any tip? I mean, there's one photo with I think 3 layers of,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. How can I do that? Can you do it?
I think it's I am a playful person at heart, and I always like, even in the
Yeah.
construction of the clothes, I like to take construction ideas and be playful with them. And then on top of that, in the styling ideas, like I just like to be playful, because I think in the end, style comes from different proposition of the way you put clothes together. I don't think you can have taste, but
Couldn't agree
style is
more.
something completely different. And styling, like if you think about, the 80s and the 90s and now, like you have the classic things like t-shirts and jeans and shirts, but I think the proportion of the clothes all tell a different story. And so I think it's about that transcends into style. And so for me, the styling part of what we do in the lookbook is so important. And I think, and a lot of the times it happens on the set when you see it with the clothes on the model, and you work with a stylist, you're like, oh, those colors don't look right, but then let's take a picture anyways, just to see. And then when you take a picture, you're like, wow, okay, that looks really cool. So sometimes the process actually, like the end result comes out during the process of putting it together.
Yeah, and it shows because I agree with you. I mean, I think style is also being natural and spontaneous and not copying, trying to be something else. And I think in particular in your photo, and that's why I'm mentioning the style, it comes out like something that just happens spontaneously, and that's the best part of it. Let me talk for a little while about your magazine. You're former editor.
Yes.
And so that doesn't surprise anyone. But I love the fact that it's called Homme Girl, and homme in French, girl in English, the two genders. So there's the dichotomy of things. And I think that's quite obvious in your recent collection. So am I wrong? Am I right? What can you say about it?
No, you're completely right. And I think that the magazine is called Om Girls, and it basically is a nod to, obviously, menswear clothing, as it pertains to women and their obsession with men's clothes. But then it also pertains to the word homegirls from the 90s, which was really born in the US here in New York, and basically the idea of streetwear, back then. And I think that I launched it about a year and a half ago, at the time when I felt like, there was more storytelling to be done in the vein that women love to wear men's clothes. You know, there are women who want to show off their body, but there are also women who love to wear tailoring as an expression of femininity. And I think that's where I am in terms of my sort of my muses. You know, I love, you know, when I was growing up in fashion, all of the women that I look up to, all of the stylists, the fashion editors, you know, they would do these beautiful images, feminine images, fantastical images. But then, you know, you look at their uniform, it would be a simple button-down shirt, simple men's trousers, maybe loafers, you know, a blazer. Like that was their uniform. And I was always intrigued by that. Like, wow, you know, you have all of this fashion, you know, at your disposal, but, you know, you stick true to a simplistic style that you love and you wear for many years. And so, you know, I felt like there was something to be told there, and that's how it was born. But also, I am very much a designer who works in both realms. I'm so inspired by menswear, but I also am inspired by femininity. And so for me, it's the ability to be able to put that together in a media, in a magazine. But you do see that in the Thakoon collection as well. You know, even in the way that I reinterpret the classic men's striped shirting with some ruching on the
Yes.
sleeves. You know, but then pairing that with something like an eyelet that's feminine. So it's really, it's very much a dialogue between men and women.
It's lovely because first of all, I relate totally in the woman wearing loafers and suits, because that's been my uniform forever. Before it was cool. And so I'm very happy to hear it from, you know, the mouth of a designer. But also, I think today, even the opposite is happening even more. You know, I would call it the femme boy. You know, just the opposite, because we've seen a lot of, you know, sexiness, overted sexiness in men, and men wearing skirts, and, you know, this. I don't even think it's a mixing of the gender. It's really trying to be gender, to not make it relevant anymore.
Yeah.
But your collections, even if you use these men's tailoring, they're very feminine. So I wouldn't put you in the genderless kind of designer, right?
I know, and in fact, I mean, I'm not conscious either way, you know, and I think that I'm happy to see, you know, somebody who's a bit more gender neutral in the Thakoon collection, as much as I see somebody who is overtly feminine in the collection, because that means that it's universal enough to appeal to all kinds of gender. So, you know, that's my mantra, that's my goal as a designer. Like, I'm not a designer who needs to put out my vision and sort of like and let people see that I'm a designer who wants to put out pieces that people actually wear and people actually appreciate, and it's universal. And that's what I think, for me, a designer is somebody who dresses people.
Very well said. I think these are perfect words to end this lovely little chat. So go back to your Sunday and your Valentine, and I wish you huge success for this beautiful collection.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your Valentine's Day as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.